All right, we're here with Brian Penikas, makeup artist and founder of Ape Mania. Thanks for being here with us, Brian.
Pleasure.
Hey, so we are here just at the very start of our Planet of the Apes journey, but you have this whole troupe called Ape Mania and are a huge fan. And so, like, we are just curious how you, when did you first see Planet of the Apes? How did what's your relationship with the franchise?
The first time I ever saw Planet of the Apes, I want to say I was in junior high school. So that would have been way back in the early 70s. And I saw it on a black and white television set in my bedroom, like after my Saturday chores or whatever, having lunch. And it was amazing to me. I mean, the prosthetic makeup and all that, but more so that the characters were so believable. And so the performers completely took the makeup part of the equation away from me, because Zira and Cornelius and Zaius, all those characters were just real characters. And that says a lot for the actors. That says a lot for the makeup and hair team and the wardrobe and the art directing and the writing, because it was easy to get absorbed into the movie. Even in black and white on a small television set, I was glued to it. And then, of course, the reveal ending was like, whoa, because we were still in the middle of the first Cold War, and that was very much a reality to people from my generation, that at any moment somebody could push the button and the apes would take over the world.
Yeah. So I read in your website bio that you were actually kind of doing the makeup, Hollywood makeup, as a career before Ape Mania really started. So
yes.
Why and how did Ape Mania get going?
Well, we did experiment with Planet of the Apes makeups while we were in high school for science fiction conventions, and just horsing around town driving go-karts, or we had like a little skeeter boat, like motorboat place here in Northridge, and so the apes would go race motorboats, just crazy shit, but with apes being the crazy characters.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun. I mean, we did that for quite a few years, from high school and then a couple of years beyond high school. And then, of course, everybody started getting married, going to college, and moving away. And so it just got put in mothballs, actually. And then I want to say right around the time I turned 30, my circle of friends started going on cruises, like ocean cruises, like these 3-day cruises. And by the time we did the 5th one, it was getting kind of repetitive, and I know, let's dress up like characters and invade the cruise ship. And we had a friend that worked for the cruise line, so it was easy to set things up. And I just kept badgering the group, let's dress up like Klingons, because everybody knows what Klingons are. I'm not a Trekkie, but I figured, if we did Klingons, we can have some fun. Yeah. And everybody kept poo-pooing that idea. And then one guy, David Hoff, from junior high school, buddy, goes, I'm not interested in doing Star Trek, but I'll do the apes again. And as soon as he said that, like 6 other people in the group said, oh, yeah, let's do the apes. And so we pulled everything out of mothballs and spent weeks getting prosthetics and everything ready to invade this cruise. And it was a blast. They had so many photographers on staff that night. They must have made a fortune. The cruise line must have made a fortune with all of the photos that we posed for, and you paid $20 for an 8x10 with those cruise ships.
Yeah.
It was insane. And we had so much fun that was the rebirth of what we had been doing in high school. So we started doing more, and the more and more we were doing it, like going to there's a place called the Sagebrush Cantina out here. We did that, and the Hard Rock cafes and different places where there'd be a lot of spectacle and all that. And then who was it? Oh, a writer, Scott Essman, contacted us and said that he heard we dressed up as Planet of the Apes, and he was going to do this surprise birthday party for John Chambers' 75th birthday. And we went, yeah, okay, we can do that, but we're not going to just dress up and pose. We're going to invade the party. The apes will invade the party. And so we scripted this whole thing out, you know, just stealing stuff from the movie dialogue and all that.
Yeah.
And the apes invaded the party. And, you know, I'm sure Scott posted it online, so it's on YouTube or something, but it was a lot of fun. And plus the fact that everybody that was still alive that worked on the film was there.
Right.
That's
So
cool.
Chambers and his team and Roddy McDowell, Martin Landau was there. I mean, it was just the coolest thing. And it went off so well. And John, of course, was very appreciative. And we kept going back and visiting him at the motion picture home, you know, for many years after that. But then it's just snowballed from there. We started getting calls to do, you know, television appearances and, you know, cameos and feature films. And then AMC was doing the 30th anniversary at the Academy before the Oscars moved to the Staple or wherever it is now, the Kodak Theater.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we had heard that they were going to do this 30th anniversary thing with red carpet and all that. And another makeup effects guy that I knew that was connected with it had said that they hired some company back east to make these gorilla like walk-arounds, and he showed me some pictures of them, and they were like these Mardi Gras size head things. They were like ridiculous looking, and I went, no, this won't do. Find out who is in charge with this. And AMC was involved. It was a thing between Fox and AMC. So we found out who the person in charge was over at AMC, and we took our actor that played Dr. Zaius, Laird McIntosh, and he's one of the groundlings. So he just nails the character extremely well. We dressed him up as Dr. Zaius and sent him down to the AMC production office with a package of what we had been doing up to that point as far as Ape Mania is concerned. And of course, he enters the lot in character and goes through the building in character, and he's got his walking stick and he's banging on doors and things looking for the lady that he's supposed to talk to. And everybody's now following him because it's making such a spectacle. And he finds her office, and he said he walked in and she was on the phone talking to somebody, and he just starts the spiel, and it took her quite a few seconds before she realized, I have to call you back.
Yeah.
And it was at that point, I mean, I think it was just a few minutes after he left. She goes, Brian, we have to get you guys involved in this, but we have no money because we spent it all on those Florida Mardi Gras. And I'm like, we'll do it for free because it has to be done.
Wow.
And, man, that night was just amazing. I mean, just walking the red carpet with Heston and Roddy and Kim and all the people. I mean, everybody that except Arthur B. Jacobs, he was not alive, and Maurice Evans was not alive, but everybody else was there.
Yeah.
And so we did all that red carpet stuff, and then we posed for all of the photos, and then we were supposed to lead Heston and his wife and Roddy and Kim and everybody into their seats in the theater, and we did that. And Rick Baker was there. I mean, everybody in Hollywood was there.
Wow.
We lead the cast to their seats, and then we turn around to leave, and the people in charge going, no, you're supposed to sit and watch with them. And we're like, I'd never seen Planet of the Apes on the big screen.
Yeah.
I had seen all the other ones, but I had never seen Planet of the Apes on the big screen. And I remember so much about that night. I remember taking my seat, and I looked back like 2 or 3 rows, and there it was Rick Baker and his wife, and he was at the John Chambers party as well. And I think that was the last time I had seen him in person. And I looked over at him, and then I broke character and sheepishly looked away. I'm in a gorilla. I'm
Yeah.
full on gorilla. And I sheepishly looked away, and I looked back, and he goes, "Hi, Brian." And I'm like, "I always look like this."
Yeah.
But yeah, so sat down, the theater went dark, and the reality hit me. I'm going to be watching Planet of the Apes, a brand new print of it on the big screen at the Academy Theater, where they hold the Academy Awards. Sitting next to Chuck Heston, Roddy McDowall, Kim Hunter, and everybody else that made the film. And I was just like, somebody pinched me.
Yeah.
Seriously.
That's so cool.
So
It's amazing.
yeah.
Okay.
And then from there, it was like Fox, of course, all the Fox people were there, and they were saying afterwards at the after party, quite a few VPs of different departments at Fox kept hitting us and saying, "Hey, we need to talk to you about promotions and things." So they started hiring us to go do promotions to promote the 30th anniversary release. And then, of course, the 35th and the 40th. Gosh, they sent us to Europe. We did stuff in town for the 40th, and then we went to New York, and we went to London.
Wow.
And we went to Paris, and we went to Berlin.
Dang.
And we went to Spain. We went to Madrid. And it was just like, wow, for the 40th. And we're the whole time we had this recurring comment: how are we going to top this? How are we going to top this? Every time we did something, it was, how are we going to top this? And next thing you know, we're standing by the Eiffel Tower saying, how are we going to top this as apes?
Right.
It's like, it's really amazing. And we were actually at the Brandenburg Gate one night, and there was a crowd of people gathered in front of the hotel, which is right near the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, where Michael Jackson famously dangled his kid over the railing. We were at that front of that hotel. There were a couple of older ladies with British accents, and as the characters walked by, one of them goes, she questioned herself, and she went, "Cornelius?" And I went, "You're correct. That is Cornelius." And she goes, "Oh, I'm surprised I remember that." And it's moments like that where I'm like, that again is what's so amazing about that first movie. Because you look at the Mark Wahlberg, Tim Burton one, or any of the other reimaginings or whatever, and can you name any of the characters? They don't. The story isn't told the same way. Where, however that worked for the first movie, you knew who everybody was before the end of the movie. You knew who Zaius was. You knew who Lucius was. You knew who Julius was. All these characters were just, I don't know if that's good storytelling, good writing, or just good stuff, because I can't remember any of the character names from Burton's film. Fade is the only one, and Adar, I think, was the main gorilla. But
We're not there yet.
Yeah, I'm like,
we
I
will
don't
be
know.
in a few weeks, but
I saw that one in theaters, and I'm like, can't
Yeah.
remember much about it except the ending. But yeah.
okay.
So yeah, so
Great.
that's Ape Mania
Okay.
up to the 40th anniversary.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. So back on the technical side a little bit, can you talk about, how long it takes you guys to make the materials that you need and then actually get in the ape makeup and, kind of what it feels like to walk around with it?
Well, after everything is built,
Right.
especially back in the day, the first quite a few times that we did it, like for the John Chambers party, we started at about 1:30 in the morning to get all 6 or 7 characters made up as makeups with hair pieces. We had 3 hairstylists and a couple of makeup artists, all, and the actors themselves doing their own makeups and getting it all together, and costume wranglers, and all to be at the location by, I think, 9 a.m. in the morning. And it was a lot of work. And then because we were having such a good time, we stayed in it probably until midnight. because
Wow.
after we did the John Chambers party, we went across the street to the Sagebrush. We had lunch and did more spiel with all the guests there, and then we took a break, did some touch-ups, and then wound up at the Hard Rock Cafe and partied with them until all hours of the night, and then finally got back
Okay.
up, and it was well after midnight. So I think that was one of the longest days because everybody was having so much fun. That's the other thing about it, is that you lose track of time. You're especially in a crowd situation, and I tell all the cosplayers these days that decide that they want to dress up like an ape, and I'm like, oh, you're going to Comic-Con or MegaCon or Dragon Con or whatever con they're going to, be prepared. You are going to have to pose for a ton of pictures and videos. Just be prepared.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they call her right back and say, oh my God, I couldn't take 2 steps without having to pose for 20 different pictures. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Can you eat or drink when you're at these parties?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow. They're prosthetic makeups.
Yeah.
As I reach over to a mannequin head. So
Yeah.
you can eat and drink, and they're still made out of foam latex like the original, so you can actually it's comfortable. I mean, yeah, you might need to do some touch-ups on the chin or whatever, but the adhesives are different now. Back in the original for the original Apes, they used spirit gum to glue everything on, and that gets crusty and dries out after time. But now we use water-based adhesives that stay elastic, or surgical adhesives that stay elastic. So it's a lot more. There's a lot more longevity to each makeup. But to go back to your earlier question about how long it would take us to get ready for this, we very quickly realized that spending a whole day getting ready to do a whole day's worth of work as apes can take its toll on you, especially if you're doing a convention. Like Fox hired us to do a couple of years for the E3 Entertainment Expo to promote the video game that they had created. And so you're doing that 3 days in a row. You've got to get the people in and out of the makeup quickly so that they have time to rest before they go back and do it all again the next day. So I'm looking around here to see if there's one I can grab. Yeah, hold on 1 second. I'll grab something.
Okay.
So basically, we redesigned. I have to wait till I get back in front of the camera.
So funny there.
We redesigned the makeups the way we would design a stunt mask for a character in a movie. So you don't have to do the makeup on a stunt guy. We get a spandex hood and build the prosthetic makeup onto a spandex hood. And of course, the hair pieces and wig and everything would be attached to it. So basically, now what we do with everybody except for Zeus and Zira is we put a little adhesive around the contact points. They pull the spandex hooded mask on, press it into place, do some makeup around the eyes and the inside of the mouth and all that, and we're out the door.
Wow.
It takes longer to get into the costumes than it does to get into the face.
Yeah.
We still do Zeus and Zira as full makeups because doing the gorillas and Cornelius in the stunt mask way, or what we call a deluxe prosthetic mask, frees up so much time that we can give our 2 main talkers more attention for interaction and all that. So coming up with the stunt mask idea made it a lot faster, and we had so much more time to have more fun and more interaction without completely wearing ourselves out like we did early on.
So when you were first doing this and when you're creating these masks or molds, like, did you kind of just eyeball it based on the movies, or did you have access to anything?
Way back in the beginning in junior high school, the only thing we had were the old Curtis Planet of the Apes magazines that had pictures in the articles, or the bubblegum cards. There was no internet, there was no video VHSs or anything to use as a reference. So back when we did it in junior high and high school, it was very limited. But then once I got into the industry, stuff started coming my way, and you know, somebody would bring something into work, and there's a Galen face and a gorilla face, and now over the course, once we started doing all this stuff with Fox, then a lot of collectors would bring us stuff to make a display mannequin of. So they've got an original costume that they want to put on a mannequin, so we built a mannequin for them, and stuff just started coming our way. And as part of that, the original prosthetic molds for the characters over the years came into our shops, and so from that point we were able to take our interpretations and put them aside and retool original things to get it even closer to the way it's supposed to look. And on that note too, seeing a lot of those original movie props come into the shop, that the sarcophagus that's at the funeral in the first movie, that came our way for restoration, and you're like, wow, that still exists. I mean,
That's crazy. Yeah.
Buried on a ranch out in San Bernardino somewhere, and somebody found it and brought it to us, and we're like, it's so neat. I mean, we did a lot of other movie prop restoration too, but because of our involvement with the Apes, a lot of that stuff came our way. And yeah, so when it came time for us to upgrade everything that we had done in high school, now we're working from original costumes and original prosthetics and all of that. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's always a work in progress, always trying to improve. 20-something years, 30-something years later, you're still, but it slows down. Fox didn't do anything for the 50th anniversary a couple of years back. USC did. They had a whole month of Planet of the Apes screenings where they screened all the films, and they contacted us to get the group together to go and do a whole interaction with visitors to the museum they put together and to the screening and all that. But Fox, because Fox is now owned by Disney, everything's changed hands. So
sure,
I don't think that new blood knows what the plastic old stuff is even about.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay. So yeah, what is Ape Mania like as a group kind of up to now, if the official things have kind of died down? Are you guys still getting together and doing play things and going to gigs, or just for fun?
I'm trying to remember the last thing we did. Usually it's like one or two people for a party or some sort of thing, but the last one where all of us got together was for the 50th at the USC Film School. And you know, it's not a month goes by where somebody from the group says, well, I'm itching to do it again, let's get together and do something. And it's like, oh, okay, let me figure this out, you know. But right before the pandemic, there was an event that was going on back east that wanted the Ape Mania troupe to fly out, and you know, it's expensive. You know, they got to fly all the cast and the crew out and put them up and feed them and all that. And then COVID hit, and that event got canceled. So that would have been something a little bit more recent, but you know, and then now COVID has changed a lot. Just in what I do for a living, you always have to go and test before, a day or two before you start any new show, and then test every other day, just because of where we are in the world now. So
right.
Yeah, I love one of the things you talked about early on when you were talking about Ape Mania is that, you know, you're not just excuse me, you're not just there to just pose and take photos. You guys had a whole, like, it was like a live theater type thing where you're coming in and invading the party. And
right, you can't not be in character. It feels wrong if you break character while you're in it, because people are there reacting to you as that character, and it just never crosses your mind to step out of the character, with the one exception where Rick Baker saw me at the screening and all that, and I'm like, oh geez, he's gonna think I'm just some nerd that is running around in this 24/7. But
And
yeah, go ahead.
oh yeah, I was gonna ask. So how many members of the troupe were there? And like, everyone plays specific characters, or you guys switch things up? And like, which character do you play?
For the most part, everybody has their character that they play, and we have Zaius has been played by a couple of different people, but Laird McIntosh is the main one, and you may recognize Laird or not recognize him because he's in lots of commercials and all that. Most recently, he's in the Progressive commercial where the Progressive agents want the girl to go with them to the movies or whatever, and she's like no, and her parents show up on motorcycles to pick her up to go to the Jazz Jamboree Fest or whatever.
Oh
He's dad. He's the dad of the girl and all that. So if next time you see that commercial, that's our Dr. Zaius.
Nice.
Our Zira is a radio DJ for the Wave. Okay. So Michelle is that, and then our Cornelius is Duke Cullen. He works a lot with the Jim Henson Studio. Our Ursus, Royce Bios, works for Disneyland now.
Okay.
He's in the animation department over there. As does our Julius. Our Julius, Sonny Chapman works for WED. So he's part of the Imagineering end of Disney. Yeah, and then there's me, the makeup guy.
Yeah. So let's hear a little bit about your career and all the cool things that you've worked on. How did why did you get into makeup, and how did your career kind of take off?
Well, originally I wanted to be a comic book illustrator, and all through elementary school and junior high school, I thought that was the direction I was going to be going. And then in 7th grade, the guy next to me in science class came in with a bottle of liquid latex, and he was brushing it on his skin and peeling his skin off. And then he had a book that was made in the 1950s about motion pictures and there was a chapter in there about makeup. And I was like, so wait, you mean this little bottle of rubber can make these things? And all of a sudden the idea of my drawings and comic book characters, the idea of bringing those to life came about. And then Star Wars came out the following year. The first episode 4, the first one came out, and I'm like, we can make all of this stuff, from the miniatures to the props to the costumes to the makeups. We can do all of this. And Planet of the Apes television series was happening at the time, and it was like, okay, this is fun. I want to dress up like a gorilla and go terrorize the neighborhood on horseback. And so it all came together, I'd say, in the 7th grade, that determined to get into the movie business as a makeup artist. And then shortly after high school, I graduated high school, I started sending portfolios to all the makeup artists I could find addresses for in the local phone books. And the first one started hiring me as an illustrator, a designer. And I'd go with them to production meetings and sit there and listen to what the director wanted and scribble out ideas. And from that, I worked my way into the back rooms of the labs and learned how to make things, sculpt and make molds and cast things and paint things, all that. So it's kind of went that way.
Yeah, I love the kind of like grassroots way you went about it.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't just look at a phone book anymore, but there's things you can do similar. But yeah, that's
great. You ask somebody what a phone book is, and they're like, what? So yeah, I mean, it's, and I tell the kids now, it's like, you've got the answers in the palm of your hand. I mean, a question comes up and you can just look online right there and get a multitude of answers and information. Whereas back in my day, if you weren't knocking on doors in person or going to the local makeup supply place and asking questions. You didn't. There was no way to get information.
Yeah.
Because even the articles that were in those magazines weren't accurate. They didn't really tell you how things were made.
Yeah.
They just said, oh, and then they sculpt this, and then they throw plaster on it, and then they put foam in it. They don't tell you the whole process. So when you try it with all your allowance money going out the window every time you fail, it was very disappointing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, your resume, your IMDb is incredible.
It's incomplete too. Those things are they never have all the information.
Right. So what are some of the projects or character designs that you're like most proud of, or that you feel you most want to be known for?
Well, let's start with the most fun.
Okay.
Fun projects were the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Oh, man.
Talk about being a little boy growing up wanting to play cowboys and Indians and cops and robbers and pirates. That's what we did. And we shot the second and third movie at the same time. So it was almost 2 years that we were traveling and on location and out in the ocean, firing cannons at each other. And it was just... There were so many days that I'd just be sitting on the boat and thinking, this is incredibly unbelievable. I mean, this is so cool. And, I understand a lot of people, well, thank God I wasn't a person that got seasick, but a lot of people couldn't be on the boat because they had seasickness. And a lot of people missed their families because they were away so long. But to me, it was magic. It was just magic, watching how everything was done and all that. So that type of movie project was great. As far as fantasy character designs, the most gratifying makeups are the realistic ones. So a fake nose, like the fake nose I did for Al Pacino for Any Given Sunday. When a colleague or a director contacts you and you're having a conversation and they say, I have no idea he was wearing a fake nose. Like, that's plus. My one and only Emmy nomination was for Mad Men, and Joel Harlow and myself and Debbie Solar did a plumping makeup on Elizabeth Moss for the first season, as she progressively gets heavier as the season goes on.
Right.
And that was one of those makeups that you couldn't tell to the naked eye. You couldn't tell. And back talking about AMC again, I was touching her up. I was on set to touch her up every day, and the execs from AMC came down and they were having a conversation with her, and she was notorious lip licker. She would always be licking, and she'd roll the corners of the cheek pieces, so I'd have to get in there and tack them back down quite often. And she's having this conversation with this AMC woman, and I'm getting in there to do the touches, and the exec said, "Oh my God, you're wearing prosthetics!" Oh, I didn't know what to say, and Elizabeth got pissed at her. She was like, "You saw me 2 weeks ago. How could I put on this much weight in 2 weeks?" And I was like, "That's a bingo for the makeup team right there."
Right.
So yeah, those types are the most rewarding. I helped with the old age makeup for Robin Williams for a movie called Jack, where he played a kid who prematurely ages and he's an old man by the time he graduates high school. And we did the old age makeup on him, and that was a riot. He was just something. That man was always on. You couldn't open your mouth and say something without him turning it into some big comedy routine. And Jennifer Lopez was in the trailer most of the time at the same time we were doing his makeup. This was before she was J-Lo. And the two of them got into, my side starts hurting when I think about this. The two of them got into this Shakespeare in Harlem type bit, that because he would just come up with shit. And the two of them started going back and forth on this, and it was so damn funny that I was in tears and I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. And I pulled this muscle right here in the diaphragm so hard. I remember stumbling out of the trailer and there's a PA standing outside the trailer, and he sees me doubled over and all these tears coming out of my face. And he goes, "Oh my God, do I need to get the medic for you? What happened? What happened?" And I'm like, "I just needed to breathe. It's a riot in there. I can't help it." The two of them together were so funny.
Wow.
And of course, like a wounded animal, as soon as I stepped back in the trailer, they were right back at it. So yeah, the realistic makeups are the most rewarding when they work, because that's the gig. That's what we do. It has to be believable, whether it's a monkey face or a fake nose or a fake fat face. There again, Eddie Murphy. I worked with them on the first Nutty Professor. When we put that whole fat thing on him to be Sherman Klump, he was in character the whole time. And you liked being around Klump. He was a really nice man. It was, you just would like forget that, wait, this is Eddie Murphy in a ton of makeup and wardrobe. No, he was Sherman Klump the whole time. And in between takes, we'd all gather around like kids, and he'd tell us stories, or Klump would tell us stories. So yeah, the realistic ones are cool. The monster stuff, as long as everything's working, it's great, but it's high maintenance. I mean, the scrolls for Captain Marvel, the green things, those were brutal, because they're all silicone. They're not foam latex. They're just these multi-piece silicone makeups, and when you're trying to keep your actor from sweating all of that off, because they've basically got a big rubber bag on their head all day long. And if they're a stunt person, forget it. They're going to sweat, and all of that stuff is just going to keep delaminating and coming apart. So yeah, the scrolls were tough, and it's an action movie, so a lot of the stunt players was the best we could do to keep them together. And then of course their wardrobes were always these multi-layered, leathered, spiked, heavy costumes,
Right.
But there again, and it has to look cool. It has to move right on camera, and you can't use lightweight stuff because it looks cheap. But yeah, of course, I'm known for the first two Jeepers Creepers movies, and yeah, that's interesting, because that was just a low budget film that we had 6 weeks to prep, and then we finished the build while we were filming it in Florida, the first one. So in 14 weeks, start to finish, from the start of the build to the end of shooting was like 14 weeks, and it's still something that I get called about and do talks about to this day, because it's this iconic movie monster.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting too, because there's no blood in that film. It's not a gore fest. It's a monster movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's interesting. And I haven't seen the third or the fourth one, but
I was like, I think there's like 5 of those or something.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen all of that.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the franchise. The third one that the director wanted to make is still on the table, but it hasn't happened yet. And that one would be super cool, because it would be the actual third movie of the trilogy, whereas the other two that followed the first two don't really count.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll see if that ever happens. But I'm not getting any younger.
Well, just speaking of franchises, why do you think that Planet of the Apes has endured so long through so many films, and why is it kind of special to you and the group? Because clearly you have the skill to do any, character that you wanted to do, to go around and dress up as, but you guys have really chosen the apes to kind of embody. Why do you feel it's so special to you?
Well, it was definitely an inspiration for me to get into the business prior to the Star Wars franchise.
Right.
So that, going back to junior high school and starting to experiment with makeup and doing it with the apes, and even back then the reactions that we would get in public as kids doing it, everybody knew who the apes were, and it was just there was enough with the sequels and the television series, and then an animated TV series, that Planet of the Apes was in the common vernacular. Everybody seemed to know what it is and who Cornelius and Zaius and Zira were. I mean, they it was just kind of instilled into our generation. And yeah, when we started doing the conventions back in the late 70s and early 80s, in the advent of the Star Wars and Logan's Run and Star Trek being the more popular series at the time, when we showed up as apes at those conventions back in the early or late 70s, early 80s, there was this like amazing reaction. Like, people hadn't necessarily forgotten about the apes, but Star Wars and everything else had pushed the apes way into the background. Plus, it's a lot of work to make people up to look like this. Whereas if you're a stormtrooper, you buy the Don Post stormtrooper helmet and throw a white sheet over yourself, and you're a stormtrooper. Yeah, you got 5 foot tall Darth Vaders, and you know, everything was store bought, and that type of thing. Or the Star Trek people, you know, they're just people wearing clothes. But the apes show up. It's not a person dressed up in a store-bought costume or a store-bought mask. It's a living, breathing character. And the reactions that we got and still get from people is amazing. I mean, it's even in this day and age, you got me thinking about things where when we do these events and people come up and go, "Are those your real eyes?" And they'll actually pull you're wearing a mask, and you're like, "Ow!" and freak out because, oh, you know what? You had asked the last time I did dress up as a one of the 8 characters. When my older brother and his wife had said, "I've never been in a prosthetic makeup. Can you do us up for Halloween?" And the only thing I had was ape stuff. And my younger brother's neighborhood is one of those neighborhoods that, like a Candy Cane Lane type neighborhood, where the whole neighborhood is just trying to outdo themselves with the best Christmas. Except for Halloween they do that.
Okay.
And we're like, all right, we'll do it over at Brother Dave's, and then we'll hit the street. And I dressed up as Ursus, so I had the full armor thing on, and my nephew went as Cornelius. My brother's wife went as Dr. Zaius.
Oh.
And my older brother went as a guerrilla soldier. And the 4 of us, it took us 2.5 hours to walk 1 block of that neighborhood because we were stopped. And it was, I remember a guy coming up to us with his family going, "You were my favorite when I was growing up. Can we pose for photos?" I'm so excited. He's so excited. And I'm like, "Yes, sure, step on." And he tightens up, not tight against me. And the Ursus armor has got these nickel-plated armor plates on it. It's real. And he bumps up against me, and he goes, "Oh, that's real." And I just looked down at him, and I'll never forget his face. And I said, "Well, what did you expect, human?" And you just saw his brain like ticking away, like, this is real? What? He was like trying to process the whole thing and all that. So yeah, it's there's something really endearing about the characters. And when you have people like that coming up to you in the group and saying this, "Oh man, I loved you as a kid," or "I think you guys are the greatest. This is the greatest thing. They should do these characters again for a movie." You hear that a lot. But they haven't. Somebody needs to win the lottery so they can do a really cool fan film.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think it's a testament to like just how great a job you guys do of replicating the original costume, not original costumes and the prosthetics and everything. That's why people people in their minds are probably like, are these the actual people from the film? Someone connected with the movie? Obviously, those people are, you know.
Right. Yeah. But if we go back, 20 something years, with the cruise, I remember going down to the photo gallery area the night following the big ape cruise thing, looking at all the photos of the apes posing with everybody. And there were a couple of ladies there going, "Oh, yeah, these are the Planet of the Apes guys. They were great. They were all from England." Like none of us are from England.
From England, yeah.
The British accents.
Accents.
They all thought we were from England or something. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, we used to get asked that question a lot back in the early days of Ape Mania. Like, did you guys work on the original film franchise? And I'm like, no, I was in diapers then.
Yeah. Like, how old do you think I am? Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, that was funny too, because when the AMC people got to meet Laird out of makeup, they were like, "Oh my God, he's so young. We thought he was an old man." And, it's like, there again, you're doing the act, you're doing the shtick, you're making it, you're selling it, you're making it work. So
that's great. Well, I think, we're gonna just ask one other thing before we wrap up. Like, we're doing this whole thing walking up to the new release of the latest film that's coming out in May, I believe, of the new franchise. Have you seen any of the newer ones? Like, you have any love for what they're doing with this?
Yeah, I've seen all the CG ones. And I thought the third one was well done. Story-wise, they all lack something. The first one and the second one are like forgettable films, and I've seen them a couple of times each. So for me to say that they're forgettable films after seeing them a few times,
yeah,
somebody's not doing their job right.
Yeah.
Technically, the CG animation, I will say, and I'm not sure if it was the second or the third one. I think it was the second one. There's a scene in there with, and I'm gonna say Koba was one of the characters, the bad chimp with the scar, I think.
Oh yeah, I think that's right. Yep.
There's a scene where there's two human paramilitary guards or something, and he goes up to them and wanting to steal their machine gun, and puts on the whole circus act thing, and steals the machine gun and kills them. And I remember when that scene ended, I was like, that performance was freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And then I went, that performance is an animated cartoon, and it was amazing. And I got goose pimples when I realized that worked. That was such an amazing scene for an animation that I was like, okay, that was successful. But there's so much weightless stuff with the CG stuff. That poor gorilla the poor horse that was under the gorilla in the last one, like that thing would have broken the horse's back, but there's no weight to computer animation stuff. So that's that, and the artificial look to the lighting. There's like nobody uses daylight anymore. Everything's shot under fluorescent lights, it appears. No matter what part of the world you live in or the universe, everything's got white, cold light, and that bugs me too. As far as the story stuff with the newer ones is concerned, the human element is disposable. I mean, it's just the human characters. There's nothing memorable about any of it. It's just like it's filler.
Yeah.
Get back to the ape stuff, because that's where the interesting story is. And so there again, your storytellers aren't doing their job if the script isn't good enough. And the movies are long, 2.5 hours or whatever. The original Ape movie is what, 90 minutes long?
I think so, yeah.
You get in, do it, get out. And then you could show it more times on the big screen and make more money. But no.
Plenty to chew on in that 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't get these bladder buster 2.5, 3 hour movies that take too long to watch the Titanic sink. It's like, come on, we know what's going to happen. Just get there.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here with us. we're always, we watch a lot of movies and stuff, and we're big fans of like amazing makeup work and like real practical stuff. And so it's great to get to talk to you and someone who's doing it in real life. And is there anywhere that people can follow along with your work or Ape Mania or social?
Yeah, they can. We're on Instagram at APEMANIA_USA, and APEMANIA.com is the website. So that's pretty much it. I'm not much of a social media guy because I'm too busy making stuff.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming projects that you can talk about that you're excited about? Or
no, the writer's strike and the actor's strike have completely destroyed Hollywood. So I know there's a handful of people that have gotten back to work, but it's going on almost a year now. My last TV gig was the last week of April of last year.
Yeah.
So even though the strikes ended in October, no new productions started during the holidays, and it's slowly squeaking to a start now, and it's already March, and it's very quiet out there.
Yep.
And I heard big rumors that both DC Universe and the Marvel Universe are moving their hubs to the UK, so they don't have to deal with unions. So
great.
All those big ticket movies that have kept us employed for so many years now are going the way of the dodo in the USA.
Oh boy.
So,
well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well,
the strikes have been tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And now there's an IATSE strike
looming this summer. Yeah. I think they just started negotiations today, I think. So
well,
good luck.
Yes, good luck. And we want to see your work again soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, thank you so much for responding and for doing this. We really appreciate it. And we'll definitely be thinking about you and your work as we go through the rest of these movies.
Great. I'll be looking forward to watching them. What you've done, what your episodes about. So
awesome.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Brian. Appreciate
it. Faith.
Yes.
They say in the Apes.
Yes.
Keeper of the faith and whatever Dr. Zaius was.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Have a great one.